Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome, January 16th. Today we have entered into gate 60. So this is a fun one. This is the gate of acceptance, also known as limitation. So let's sit with that for a minute. How does that feel in your body right now? How does the word limitation feel for you, right? What is that association? For me, when I think limitation, I'm like, oh, heck no. I don't want limitations. Get that out of here. I want freedom. I want to explore. I want to do what I want to do, right? I don't want to be limited. So this is going to be part of what we chat about today, like the beauty, finding the beauty and that connection to the limitation, that we have it in our lives instead of just that chaos, right? What is that purpose of the limitation and how do we work with it? So I'm just Tilly.
Sorry, I was drinking my tea. I'm Kathy Bashanko, and as you can hear, I'm still a little bit congested. I'm a little limited um, in my expression. I'm sorry I wasn't able to join you guys last week, but I was like literally down and out in the bed for a couple of days. But I am back accepting my limitations and here to share all this wisdom with you. Lots of time for contemplation when you're laying in the bed, right?
Yes, absolutely. I love that. Working in the limitations. Oh, that's too funny. As you're drinking, I'm like, hi, I'm Jess.
Thanks, Jess.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Perfect
Accepting it.
timing.
It's always perfect timing. I love it. So let's take a look real quick. We're so excited to have Kathy back with us this week. As she said, she wasn't feeling well last week. But sometimes it's really perfect to take that time to really step back, to reflect, to have that time to contemplate. And sometimes our bodies just knock us out so that we do stop. Because sometimes we're just so busy going and doing and the next thing and this thing and this thing and this thing, that it's almost a gift, right? To just be like, okay, I have to sit. I can't get up right now.
It's really funny how our body does this. And I will say, in a planning session at the beginning of the year, at the beginning of the Gregorian year, we were looking at numerology, and I was told for me personally, this is a number 7 month, which is all about resting, right? And stuff. And so here I am, like launching like a new thing at the end of the month. And I was like, no, I can't change it and all this stuff. And like trying to do all this stuff, my body is just like, well, you're gonna rest. Boom.
Yes. You
So
get the
yeah,
nudges like slow down, rest, and you're like, yeah, yeah,
right.
okay, okay. And it's like, boom,
Right.
I'll take you out. Especially, yeah, as a projector too, really honoring that rest cycle, that piece of you where you get to take that time to fill yourself back up. Want to share something I love, love, love telling projectors and sharing with them. If you think about a projector as an airplane, right? How much gas does it take to fill up that airplane, to refuel it, right? For it to take off to fly. Versus if you think about the cars on the ground and
Yeah.
they get to like run around and go around, how much gas does it take to fill up the car and what it's doing? Not to say one's better than the other, but just that
Mhm.
difference in that perspective, in that the projector is that energy that has that oversight that gets to take that flight, but it does take a lot of that energy and requiring that refueling. So taking that rest is that beautiful part, that essential part of refueling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a beautiful analogy. I haven't heard that one. Thank you, Jess.
Yeah. You're very welcome. Channel of awareness. Sitting there like do 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 boom, got it. Let's see. Share. So we are gate 60 today, and this is gate of acceptance and limitation. And we are back. Where are we back in? The root. So for everybody who's been, everybody, there's a limitation in my verbiage there. For everybody who's been following along, we started gate 38, right? Which was the root, an individual. We then moved to gate 54, also the root, tribal. Then we were up in the head, gate 61, individual. Now we're back in the root. And this is also an individual energy. So we're right here, gate 60. So gate 60 is moving over here from the root up to the sacral energy, that life force energy, making the channel right here with gate 8. So over here, coming back to the root, what is the root? We're back in the pressure of the root. The last gate we were in was the pressure of the head, the thinking, the trying to figure out what is that mystery, what is that inner truth within us. So we're back in the pressure of the root, right? That momentum, that pulse, that movement of the root. So gate 60, what is limitation? And again, looking at what does limitation feel like in your body? How do you resonate with the word limitation? Does the word acceptance feel better? Using the word that feels good to step into this energy. So the theme for this is you get to let go. This is the last gate in the mandala as we move around, as we close the cycle. This is the closing gate before we step into the 41st gate, which is starting the new cycle, which we're going to do on the 21st. And so this is about, there's two pieces to this limitation. Part of it is accepting the natural limitations in life, like accepting what's there and working within this to transform and evolve. And then there's also this piece of transcendence. What things are you leaving behind? What are you letting go? What are the limitations that you're like, I'm done with this. I'm taking this, I'm moving past, I'm letting go. That gets to stay in that past cycle. This is not something I'm taking forward with me. Um, so if you think about that first example, this is almost like a game of Tetris. How do I fit this? How do I work this in? How do I work and step into that creative energy where I get to go, how do I work within this box? How do I fit this in so that it works for me? Versus the other energy of that looking at what is limiting me in my life that I want to let go of. And if you haven't read the book, I love the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. That book was really great for me because I used to care incredibly too much about absolutely everything, which can be limiting when you don't choose what are those things. What are those things? And part of the book speaks about when you have a problem. And so many people were coming to the author and going, I have this problem, but I don't know what to do. I have this boyfriend and I don't know how to break up with him. I have this conversation I have to have with my mom and I don't know how to do it. And it's not that you don't know how to do it. You know the steps to take. It's the feeling in between that. It's the having, it's that pain, it's that feeling, that fear, whatever it is that's coming up for you around that situation that's stopping you from doing the thing you actually know sometimes how to do that, how to take that step. It's just the process and stepping into that bravery of going, okay, I'm going to move through this. This is a conversation I want to have. This is a place I want to go. I want to ask that person out, but I'm scared to, excuse me, scared to. So you get to go, I feel this fear, but it is not going to limit me. I'm going to transcend this limitation. I'm going to be scared shitless, and you know what? I'm going to do it anyway, right? This is where we start to expand. And when we have expansion, just remembering where we are right now feels comfortable. This is my bubble. I know this bubble. I've moved into this bubble. I've moved around here. It's familiar to me. When we start to expand, if you think about it, that's your energy going out. It's new. It's scary until we've explored it, and it's supposed to be, right? It's supposed to have that exciting feeling to it, that fear to it, the unknown. But also bearing in mind our subconscious is trying to keep us safe. And it's like, come back in, come back in. I don't know what's out there. I don't want any part of that, right? I want to be safe. I want to keep us in what I know, even if that is limiting. So just really leaning into that piece of like fear can be a natural part of this. And that's okay. So working through that limitation. There's a beautiful quote from Ra about gate 60. He says, it's all about transcendence. The moment you accept limitation, it no longer exists. So working within that limitation, right? So this is where we're coming back to going, okay, this is here, but it doesn't get to stop me. How do I work within this?
That's beautiful. And I've been really sitting with all this energy and really realizing how, or I've realized it before, but sitting with the idea of how all the transits work together, right? Nothing exists in isolation. And so, as we're sitting in this energy, we're also feeling the energy of the earth, right? The earth right now is highlighting gate 56, which is what's the story we're telling about our limitations, right? How are we talking about the limitations? And I was right before this call, I was listening to Richard Rudd sends out a thing called the Pulse every time the transits change, and I love to listen to them. This one was really beautiful, and he was talking about how without the banks there is no river, right? So like the banks are what limit the river, but they also define it. They also shape it. And so really seeing our limitations as structure and gifts in a way, is a beautiful thing to look at. And I also have really great, like I really want to recommend Denise Matthews' book, which is wait, I'm so bad at remembering the actual real name of it. Um, The Mandala of Life, 384 Lines of Self-Discovery with Human Design. And she actually has it written in the order of the mandala. So this is the last chapter of the book, right? The last section of the book. And then you start over again. And she's amazing. I love following her transit reports and stuff. But she talks about when she's talking about, the key phrase for gate 41 says, which is what we're moving into after this gate is the limitation of resources which maximizes the development of potential. So there's limitation in what we're looking at in as we go into the next gate as well. And so that gate 41 about imagination is all about is also the gate of decrease. There's so many names for everything, right? It can get
Yeah.
confusing and I find that sometimes I refer to a gate. It's so funny the way we just pick a word, right? And some gates I refer to by the I Ching name, and other ones I refer to by the traditional human design. And some of them I really like the quantum human design name. And I just throw them all out there and nobody ever knows what I'm talking about, you know? So that's why a lot of times we all just throw the number out because we could look it up by the number, right?
Mhm.
But the key phrase, I love these little cards too. I don't know if any of you have
Oh,
these.
I love that. Real quick, I just shared the screen so everybody can see. So this is the mandala. This is the different gates right here. So we move this way through all the different gates. And this is the closing energy right here. So we did the 38, the 54, the 61, and now we're in the 60. And then over here, when we cross over into the 41st gate, that's the initiating codon. That's the starting of the new cycle. So that's what we were talking about if anybody needed a visual for those.
Right. Yeah. So on these little cards, it always lists what the key phrase is for each gate, right? And the key phrase for gate 60 is the acceptance of limitation is the first step in transcendence. It
Mhm.
is the space between where mutation takes place. Mutation is released in limited amounts.
Mhm.
And if you think of it, growth, it's like, have you ever know somebody who's had a kid who's had a huge growth spurt? Like a huge crazy one, like it really messes up their body. It's like
Mhm.
we are not built for that. And if you have a large breed puppy, you have to give them a very specific kind of food so they don't grow so fast that they have physical
Mhm.
problems. So, as much as we want to just be like mutated and be like
And
all these things, right? Like it has,
now, I want it
right?
now.
There's this space that has to happen in between and grow. And I
Yeah.
just wrote this blog post about how I had this realization last night. Somehow, I don't know the chain of events that led me there. I realized that in 2013, I wrote this guest blog post for somebody. I didn't have a blog then. I had just started a Facebook page called Style Daily, and I was trying to start this business doing like consultations for people, helping them to kind of take hold of their closet and do things that would make that just made it less stressful for them to know like how they wanted to show up. And so I read this blog post that I wrote 11 years ago this last November, and I was like, wow, there's so many similarities in what I was saying there in what I'm doing in this new um, challenge that I'm doing. And I'm like, and then for a minute, there was this moment of, wow, imagine if I'd started actually doing it back then. And then I was like, no, there's a reason you didn't do it then. And a lot of it was the story I was telling myself kept me
Mhm.
small, like, that whole gate 56 energy. So it
Mhm.
really related a lot to this 60 and 56 of like how I felt these limitations of back then. No, I didn't know how to use Zoom. I don't think I'd ever even been on a Zoom in 2013. And
Yeah.
I was like, are strangers really going to invite me into their home? And do I really want to spend 4 hours in somebody's home? And how much am I going to charge that's going to make it worthwhile? And people don't know, why are they going to pay me for that? I don't have any credibility. And there was all this imposter syndrome stuff. And I
Mhm.
wound up letting it go, even though I knew in my heart it was something that I was good at. I'd done it with friends. And like one of my friends, when we were done, she started crying and she said, "You changed my life." And I was like, "Oh my God, this is beautiful, right?"
Yeah.
So but I was limited by the constraints of what I knew then, right?
Mhm.
And so now, first of all, I no longer think I'm like, I thought at 50, oh, you're too old to start a new business. And meanwhile, I started a new business at 58. But, and now I'm shifting a little bit at 61. So anyway, it was interesting to really reflect. And was looking at that in my blog. But the other thing I've been reflecting on, wait, I'm gonna let you respond while I cough.
And this is another limitation, right? The coughing and acceptance that this is a natural part of it. Also, part of letting go, right? Sometimes it knocks our bodies energetically just to let it go.
Right?
Take that time to almost like recalibrate a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I was doing when I write these transit blog posts, I like to look at the different energies, and a lot of times I write them, try to find that balance between writing it when I try to write it during the sixth line of the one before. So I'm kind of already feeling the energy, but it's not coming out so late. People don't have the full cycle.
Yeah.
But sometimes it takes some time, especially with emotional authority. And the next day almost like, oh, I need to go in and and edit that. And I'm like, no, maybe I'll just put some commentary. But right now I'm realizing how the um, other personal planets are really in, they're always really close to the sun and what they're reflecting, right?
Mhm.
So we've got Mercury in gate 38.
Mhm.
So and that's a really strong energy that we just went through in the sun, what, two, three transits ago? At the beginning, that was the first one we did together, right? So
Yeah.
that was towards the beginning of January. So we're still talking about what is worth fighting for, what's important to us. And um, yesterday, Mars was in gate 56. I know it just moved into, because it's going retrograde.
Mhm.
So it moved into whatever the one before that was that the Earth was in, 62. So it's in 62 now. So it's mirroring where the Earth is.
Mhm.
Um, and it's going retrograde. And yesterday it went through gate 56, which is where this Earth is right now. And I did not realize this, but gate 56 is actually a stop codon.
Mhm.
So we're really closing out some cycles with this Mars retrograde energy, which is super aggressive
Um,
energy.
and just if you'd like to share with everybody a little bit more, like Mercury is like communication and what exactly that entails for those.
Yeah. Yeah. So 38 is, Mercury's in gate 38. So we're talking about these things. We're communicating about what matters to us, or at least we should be. And other people around us are doing the same. So, really looking at this energy in a way that puts it all together.
Mhm.
So, and the story, the 56 is this storyteller energy. Mars is this aggressive energy that we've been feeling as Mars retrogrades through all this all this energy of what's important to us in our lives right now. And so for me, I had this kind of aha moment this morning where, I'm always airing my family's dirty laundry, so they just have to get over it because I don't know how else to share this with you, but my husband wanted me to do something today that made no sense to me that he was asking me to do it. It was something that he wanted me to talk to our adult daughter about, who lives in this house and he's working from home today. And I looked at him with confusion as to why he was asking me. And his response was to be like, just forget it, right? I'll do it. And for a moment, there was this old feeling of, um, oh, he's mad at me. I did something wrong. I should go do it, right? But this energy, the way it's all going through, was I was able to, within a matter of minutes, go, no, this is his to figure out. This is his to work through. His reaction is not my responsibility,
Mhm.
right? I'm allowed to have my thing. So it's all this like knowing what to fight for, knowing what's limiting us, knowing like all of this is really coming together in this beautiful way when you can just stop, pull yourself out of the situation
Mhm.
and observe it, right? And that passenger consciousness is really the key to all of this, where you don't let yourself get caught up in it and let it drive you,
Mhm.
you know, in a way that is not allowing your magnetic monopole, your driver to
Yeah.
drive, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Great point. Yeah, exactly. And so, and that comes with the energy of limitation, right? Like limitation can feel like you're smacking into a wall. You're like running into a wall and you're like, why can't I get through this? And that's exactly like you said, you take that step back. You stop running into that wall and you go, what's happening with this wall? What am I experiencing? How am I experiencing it? And you start to explore it, right? And coming back to this place where we find beauty in the limitation, beauty coming back to the place of natural rhythms, natural cycles, that you step into a piece of patience too, right? There's that patience in knowing that there's a time for starting, there's a time for resting, there's a time for closing, there's a time for all of it, right? That natural cycle. Instead of trying to push in where you're hitting that wall and you're hitting that wall and you're hitting that wall, but also stepping back to go, life has chaos. There's chaos in life, right? But there's also that limitation. And like you talked about the riverbanks, if you think about even just driving a car, if you think about everybody driving their cars all over the place and everyone's like banging into each other, who's going, everyone's honking, there is that need. There's that need for that limitation where there is that stoplight, where there is that stop sign, where there is that limitation of who goes first, who's not going. How do we all do this together, right? So
Yeah, right.
finding, yeah, so finding that piece of beauty in the limitation when you start to explore it. But it's not beautiful when you're slamming into it, right? When you're hitting that wall, but that's that sign to you that it's like, hold on, hold on, what's happening? Let's step back and see what's going on. And I absolutely love that you shared about Mercury because what we're going through right now, and sharing with you all is the sun transits. But we're not just affected by the sun transits, right? We're affected by everything out there. The majority is the sun. That's, 70%. It is our largest influence, but there's other pieces too, especially the Mercury, how we're communicating. What's happening with that, right? What are we fighting for? What's happening in Mars? What is that thing within us, right? Um, but not ever to get to the place where you go, oh my gosh, I need to know all of it, right?
Yeah, and right now, and so finding that balance between I try to always keep the long-term transits kind of in the back of my mind. Like right now, for the longest time, it feels like we've all been feeling this emotional manifesting energy of the 35-36, right? Which is wanting emotional experiences, like really driving us to find meaningful things that are happening. And um really, yeah, you're
There,
going to show us where that
yeah,
channel,
so
the
the
third, yeah, the
35,
36,
yeah.
yeah, right, right there. And the 36 has been highlighted for a long time, for like over 2 years by Neptune. And that's going to shift in February. And so many people were super excited to hear that, but the nodes shift right before that, and 36 is going to be defined by the nodes. So, oops, sorry, you're still going to have that. And
Yeah.
35 right now has been defined by Jupiter, I think, since sometime in December, wasn't it? That it moved into there? I don't know
No,
if you
I'm not
remember.
100% sure.
But Jupiter expands whatever it touches, right?
Mhm.
So it can expand the good and it can expand the bad. So really understanding how that energy is really driving us to make us look at our experiences in bigger emotional ways. We can see things as more meaningful than they need to be. And so again, looking at that gate 56 energy, what's the story we're telling ourselves about it? Are we making something the end all be all that is not really the end all be all? Maybe it's just something that's helping us to see the limitations we're working within, right? So,
Yeah,
um, yeah.
absolutely. I love that. It's the whole functioning human, it's all the pieces.
Yeah.
Go here. Start looking at the questions. So one of the first questions we have for gate 60 is, where can I see evidence of the necessity of limitations? So this is starting to explore, how does limitation feel for me? Because as I shared before, for me, I was like, no, don't limit me. I'll fight you. I want my freedom. I want to do the things, follow my bliss.
You're
Um,
not the boss of me.
yeah, you don't get to tell me until you slam the wall and you slam the wall and you're like, okay. Um, so where do I see evidence? Starting to look at what is that story within you of that limitation where you go, the sentence, I can't because of this, and really deeply looking at it. Is it that I can't go and ask this person out, or is it that you're limiting yourself, right?
Yeah.
Or is this
And
a limitation to accept? So
and we've
really,
been in this, oh, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Gate 60, this energy has been so prominent on a smaller scale for all of us because Pluto has been in Gate 60 for years.
Mhm.
So we've been feeling this energy, but it's a much smaller part of the neutrino stream when it's a faraway planet like that. But now it's just like, so these seeds that have been there of it all for years are right now just like, ah,
Mhm. And I feel called to share here with this as we're going through all these influences. None of this is you, right? You have your
right.
chart, you have your experience, and right now you're tasting the flavors and you're experiencing these activations. Another way to think about it that Barbara shares is it's the backdrop. What is happening where the actors on the stage? What's happening in my backdrop? What is happening in the settings around me that influence me, but they're not me? Also, reminder that we're so, so, so excited to have Barbara come and share with us on January, I wrote it down here, January 26th at 2 p.m. Eastern. So if you have any questions pertaining to the 2027 shift, definitely send those in, pop them in the chat here, send me an email, jesstilly@corecalling.com, put them in the Telegram or in the Facebook, wherever, share those questions with us because we definitely love to share those with her because she's just such a wealth of information. Also, Kathy just did a podcast she's going to be releasing with Barbara. So that's very exciting. We'll put the information for that as well. So coming back to our question, so where do I find evidence of this? Like, where am I seeing this in my life? And what is that story? What is that thing with the limitation? And how can I step into going, this is working for me. This is here for this experience, and changing that story instead of I can't because of this thing. Starting to work into that empowered place and knowing that there is that inherent chaos in life, but there's also that limitation to balance it. And then the next question is, how do I handle, so frustration is very prevalent for me as a generator. What does it feel like for you? That's your own personal experience of it. But how do I handle limitations? How do I handle when this happened? What does that actually feel like within me when I hit that limitation? And so exploring what are my, because we're habitual, right? And that's how our mind works. How we've done it in the past, our mind's like, oh, I know how to do this. This is how we did this in the past. This is how we're going to do it. And if you're not aware of the mind, you're going to keep doing it the same way. So going, what are my habits right now of how I move through a limitation? Do I go and climb in bed and hide? Do I go and numb? Do I fight it? What do I do when I have this limitation in my life? What is my current habit, right? What lessons can I learn from those moments when things feel restricted or blocked? What can I find within myself and that situation? And again, we're not beating, no beating ourselves up. Put the stick down. This is interesting how never to go, oh, why do I do this? I have a limitation. I feel like something's blocking me, and then I go and I avoid it, or then I go and I fight it. And then whatever that response is, it's not to beat yourself up, it's that awareness of what you're currently doing. And now this next
Otherwise,
one,
that's a limitation itself, right? If you're beating yourself up.
yes.
It's really beautiful when you start to realize that you can do that, when you can just stop and go, isn't that cool? Wow, I just saw that happen. I just saw that I did that. I just observed that.
And that's
Right?
the place, right? Where we
Right?
get to experience and be part of the experiences around us, but not become them, right? Oh,
Mhm.
yes, absolutely, 100%. So the next question is, in what areas of my life do I feel constrained? So really just taking a moment to just really connect in with yourself, just taking that breath and centering, anchoring back within yourself and just going grounding, where asking yourself, where in my life do I feel constrained right now? Where do I feel like I'm blocked? And then writing it either in this page or getting another page and just sprawling all the things and being like, I feel blocked at work. I feel blocked in relationships. I feel blocked with my kids. I feel blocked in where I live. Where are those things in your life that you feel constrained? And then starting to explore the stories. Like, what are these blocks? Is this a limitation that's there to transcend, or is this something to move through and let go of in this closing of the cycle? We are closing, coming back to that paintbrush idea again that we started with in the beginning. Is this something on my paintbrush that I need to wash off, that I don't want to take into my next strokes, that I don't want to bring into my creation, that I don't want to bring into the next year with me? And how can I let it go? How do I let it go? What are the things? And again, if you're like, I'm not ready for that, that's okay. That's okay too, right? Even just having that awareness of what it is a beautiful step in the right direction. Then the next question, how can I honor the cyclical nature of life, the rhythms of life, accepting limitations? This one is particularly hard for me because I want it here, I want it now, I want it yesterday. And really understanding that there's a time and a place for everything, that there is that natural cycle. If you think about the seasons, there's spring, there's summer, there's fall, everything starts to go dormant. There's that winter time, that coming back within that cocoon so that you can come back out in spring again, right? If we're constantly doing as a defined sacral, defined root, I'm like, go, 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 do the things, right? Get that pulse. I'm moving, I'm moving, I'm moving. That for me to stop and go, rest is just as productive, rest is just as important as well. To feel that and trust in that, no matter what the noise is out here, because the noise out here, especially if you own a business, the noise is go, 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 be there, do the thing. Make sure you're ever present, make sure you're doing all of these other things, but trusting in the rhythm of it. Coming back to those natural cycles that we've started to ignore in our lives, that we started to ignore in society, coming back to that flow that includes the rest. So what does that look like for you and how does that feel? For me, it felt terrifying at first. I was like, I have to keep moving.
Well,
Um,
that's the conditioning of society in general, I think, is that idea that, everybody's got to be there first, right? Be the first, be the best, be the
mhm,
one. This honor that comes from being the one who works the hardest, gets the least amount of sleep, all those things that I
mhm,
think we're finally starting to wake up to the unhealthy nature of, right?
mhm. Yes, yes, absolutely. The early bird catches the worm, right? That
Yeah,
whole,
I don't really want a worm,
I don't want your worm.
right?
You can keep your worm.
There's probably enough worms for all the birds anyway. I don't,
Yes.
right? That's a scarcity mindset. So, yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So really coming back to and looking at in your life, do I follow my natural rhythm? And even as like a female, like your natural like menstrual cycle, am I following the rhythm of my body? Those changes. Am I honoring my body? Am I honoring these changes within me and what I'm feeling, even with the transits, what's going on, that it's not, you're giving yourself that time to reflect and to come back into that natural cycle. And then the last one we have is what do I need to let go of? Knowing that change requires effort, what can I do to support this process? And sometimes, like you were saying, mentioning right now, is that there's the stories. And stories can show up in our lives as beliefs. What are the beliefs I'm currently holding that are limiting me? And a beautiful way to look at this and see what it is in a situation is asking yourself these four questions, going, what would happen if I got it? Give me an example real quick. What's a thing?
I'm not sure I'm on the same page as you.
I don't know why I don't like the boyfriend idea, the asking someone out. That was the example in The Subtle Art
Okay.
of Not Giving a
Okay.
Fuck.
So let's say, so you're saying what's
A
a limiting
limitation,
belief?
something right
Limiting
now.
belief?
No, not a limiting
Um,
belief. Like what is something I could potentially want right now that I don't have? Something where I feel limited.
$1 million.
I don't, I'm trying to think.
$1 million. I
A
don't know.
million dollars. Perfect. Okay. I want $1 million. Okay. And then I go, no, I can't have that. So asking yourself the question, what would happen if I got it? What would happen in my life? What would change? What would transpire if I had that $1 million? If I had $1 million in my pocket right now, what would happen? And finding the beliefs in there, starting to just journal out all the things that would happen. Okay. The next question is, what would happen if I didn't get it? So, what would happen if I didn't have the $1 million? What would happen in my life? What would change? What would stay the same? What would shift? What is the thing in there if I didn't get the $1 million? I didn't have the $1 million in my pocket. And then asking, what would not happen if I got it? So, what would not happen in my life if I had $1 million? What would not happen anymore? What would I be losing? What would not be happening in my life with that $1 million in my pocket? And then asking yourself, what would not happen if I didn't get it? So, what would not happen if I didn't get the $1 million? So what am I missing out on? What are the things that I'm not going to happen in my life if I don't have that $1 million? And starting to look through, and that helps you to unravel the beliefs that you have behind the $1 million. What's sitting there beyond the conscious mind in those beliefs of what is there with the $1 million? What's going to change and shift in my life? What does it require to have that $1 million? And starting to explore that. And potentially that's something to let go of, that whatever belief or whatever comes through with that. Let me pause right when you need to cough. And also knowing this requires effort. This is not the energy of gate 60. It's not like, oh, I'm at the end. Check, I'm done. Quick fixes. If you think about traditional New Year, what is the quick fix? Everybody's signing up for gym memberships. If you do any kind of like stocks, so that's when you, at the beginning of the year, you buy stocks into the gym memberships because everyone's coming in, right? Everybody's buying the gym memberships that most people inevitably don't continue to use. Not the quick fix. This is not about quick fixes. Gate 60 is not like, oh, let me just quickly do this, right? It takes a lot of times courage. Change takes courage and walking through that fear, right? And it requires that effort. So finding ways to support yourself in taking those steps. If you're like, I want to be healthier, how do I walk a little bit every day? How do I take the stairs? How do I make those actual changes, not those bigger drastic changes per se, that are not going to stick? This is about actual complete change, transformation. This is it's the quarter of transformation. Like,
And the gift in Gene Keys, it's the gift of realism, right? So,
yes,
you know,
yes,
realist, realistic changes. And it's
yes,
format energy. These are this is a gate coming from the root center that's pointing towards the sacral. Those are considered format channels, right? So they format how the energy is going to pulse. The root operates on a pulse. When it's defined, it's this right timing kind of energy. So that's why part of what it says in that key phrase I read about gate 60 is it's the space between where mutation takes place. Mutation is released in limited amounts. So it's this pulse. It's not a full go, right?
Mhm.
It's a pulse of energy that is limited by whatever the constraints are that apply to that situation.
And working within those limitations for what is that shift? What is that change? What is it? And exploring what that is uniquely. Again, this gate is individual. What is this uniquely for you? Right? What is the limitation? Just because, for Kathy, maybe something's not limiting at all. She's like, this is easy. What are you talking about? Like, this isn't a limit. This is great. And I'm sitting here going, oh my gosh, how do I do this? It's individual to each one of us and our own experiences. And that is perfect. Remembering that it's perfect. Just because somebody else is doing it easily doesn't mean it's easy for you. Or vice versa. If you're like, oh, this is super easy, maybe somebody else is struggling with that. And that's the thing that they are working through. And that's perfect.
Yeah, I really recommend that listening to the recording that Richard Rudd sent out for that Gate 60. But I personally cannot say, like, cannot speak highly enough about how much it has helped me personally to, I started about the middle, sometime this summer, blogging about each of the transits. Every time it changes, I write a blog.
Mhm.
And some of them, some people might not even read. I don't know, but the way that it has impacted me because it's allowed me to observe this energy as it's showing up around me, right?
Mhm.
And to see how it can be utilized by me, right? I can utilize that for the things that feel aligned with my strategy and authority as an emotional projector. I can see how this is stuff that in the past I would have been very reactive to,
Mhm.
and I would have let it set me off and make decisions based on all this stuff going on around me. And this energy right now, from like Oh, even in December, there's this whole energy from now until mid-February that now that I can see it, I can understand why it's always such a difficult, or has been such a difficult time for me personally in some of my relationships, because I can see how it's impacting all those things because it wants me. Like, I believe that this energy, even though it's not us, it is benevolent. I believe that it is guiding us to with these challenges, right? Like we say, Saturn is the benevolent, strict teacher that makes you do the really hard papers and fix them over a million times, and you hate them, and then later you go, "Oh my God, they're the reason I am where I am today," right? So this energy is difficult, but it's benevolent, but it's not us. So it's not our strategy and authority.
Mhm.
But as I have been aware of it, I can see what's going on in a way that I'm able to really harness this energy for my greatest expansion. And that's one of my things I like to say is everything is always happening for my greatest expansion, even when it sucks in the moment,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Hard to remember in the moment, but absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely finding the gift in it. Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. Um, and just wanted to
Many
share.
times you don't find it for a long time, but you
Yes,
don't
sometimes sometimes it
later,
takes us a little bit longer.
right?
Um,
Right.
yeah, absolutely. So, Phaedra just shared, I'm currently reading a book called Atomic Habits, such a good book,
Mm,
to get into how we get what we want to stick. One was starting to identify as someone who's already achieved it. And absolutely, a huge part of this is looking at your identity,
yeah.
who's already achieved it. So if running's more, not saying I want to run, but identifying yourself to others and yourself as a runner. That's a beautiful point. Thank you for bringing that up because your identity, starting to look at like, who have I told myself and others that I am, because your subconscious is going to fight to keep that reality,
Mhm.
instead of trying to
Yes.
shift and go, that's interesting. I am now identifying as a runner. I am a person who runs, right? Rather than trying to go, I'm a person who doesn't run and I'm trying to force myself into this. And that's that fighting rather than that pulling energy. It's fighting to get there. So starting to look at and ask yourself, who do I identify as? And knowing that we will fight anything that threatens that identity, even if it's for our expansion, even if it's something that's bad for us or if it's good for us as well. Fighting because of who we believe we are and coming back to how it feels, coming back to who we are in here, right? Exactly like you were talking about strategy and authority. And at the end of the day, knowing that human design is a tool, and if human design isn't the thing for you, that's okay too. Coming back and trusting that peace within you. For me, human design is it completely because it gives me the verbiage to go, I feel this and I know this and I can see how. And I can
Yeah.
go, okay, this is the thing that's happening. And human designs give me the words and the trust in myself for the energy I'm already feeling because you're already feeling these things and noticing these things in your experience. So, all these things we're talking about, if you're like, oh my gosh, this is so much to like, I need to do this and this and this. No, it's coming back within and trusting so deeply in that feeling within you, trusting that knowing within you.
You mean radical self-trust?
Yes, yes, exactly.
That's
Radical
my, for
self-trust.
those who don't know, that's my saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And I keep thinking about how many times in the human design community I hear people fighting or arguing for their own limitations, right? I can't do this because I'm a projector. I can't do that because I have to wait to respond.
Mhm.
And, while there is some truth in you know, the idea of honoring our strategy and authority for sure, not some
Mhm.
truth, a lot of truth. The way we talk about it matters. And, you know, like you were saying, if we start saying, well, I can't because I'm a projector and I haven't been invited to do it, and we say it in a way that is um, just icky, right? It just feels like, it's a bad thing, right? And watching it and observing it in yourself is interesting because as you watch something, I had something interesting where I posted in my Facebook group something about this 5 day challenge that I'm offering, the free 5 day challenge, which starts on the Human Design New Year. And it's about, this, for those who don't know, it's about this whole idea of how we show up on the outside doesn't match who we are on the inside. Have we deconditioned the way we show up as a person, right? Do we dress in a way that's still according to the rules that our mom taught us when we were little and don't really match us?
Yeah.
Or we're rebelling against that
Mhm.
just for the sake of rebelling. Anyway, so someone who clearly, I have no idea who the person was, um, in my group started kind of being argumentative about why are you focusing on the outside? And it was really clear they didn't recognize me or what I'm doing.
Mhm.
And there was this real interesting, like, oh, isn't this interesting? I know that they're
Mhm.
not recognizing my energy, but yet
Mhm.
this is my group and
Mhm.
this is a person in my group. How
Mhm.
do I respond to this in a way that doesn't put unnecessary energy into trying to convince a person of something that clearly isn't a match for them,
Yeah.
but yet still is honoring somebody who has chosen to be in my community with a
Mhm.
response, right? But there were so many times where I was just like, I'm not here to convince you,
Yeah.
right? So like, but feeling that whole um idea, I don't know, I've kind of lost where I started with this, but
Yeah, no,
um
that feeling of just, somebody asking you and going like, why the outside, right? Why on the outside? We're just focusing on the inside. But that's such a beautiful question. And in the way that it's like, but why? To
right.
get to tell, we've been so again conditioned that, that's superficial on the outside, but that's how you express what's here. Where
And
are
that's
we?
honestly 13 in 2013 when I was trying to do this. When I stopped doing it was I decided that I was going to become more spiritual. I was going to focus on the things that truly matter. And I kind of stopped doing a lot of that stuff. I wound up in 2021, I left retail, I left fashion thinking I'm done with that. It's not, it's, destroying the planet, it's doing all these things. And now I've realized that no matter how much I left it behind, it's so much a part of me. And if I come at it from a way of really embracing the spiritual aspects of it, it's a really beautiful thing, right?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
don't know. I didn't mean to make
Yeah.
it be about that, but I really feel like when you don't feel recognized,
Mm.
it's not about, well, I can't do this because I'm a projector. It's about understanding that your energy doesn't need to go into getting the recognition of someone. It's either going to be there or it's not,
Isn't
right?
that so interesting? Because you say that question to me and it makes me so excited. And it's just such a good reminder because I forget how different that experience is as a projector and how incredibly important that recognition is. That
Yeah.
recognition piece, because to me, it's read that and it's like, oh, respond, that's cool. We get to have that, but it's that recognition piece for you. It's just so beautiful because I'm already like, oh, we can talk about how it comes from the inside out. And I'm sitting here thinking, pens. I love pens. I had pens made, and this literally says permission to be you.
Oh, I love that.
Like, because I love this, and I was in a place once where I was like, no, you can't do that. Who spends money making like a tagline on your pen? Like, why? And now I love it because it's an extension of me, like the ombre on here, the way it writes, it brings me that joy. And I get to have this. And it's so funny you're talking about clothing because this morning I'm touch cognition, and I touched the shirt and I was like, ooh, I want this one. This is the one I'm wearing. And then I had that thought. I was like, oh no, but you know what? We're going to be doing a video. I should wear something brighter or something more lively. And I was like, no. Why am I going to try and limit myself to who I
Mhm.
think people think I am? This feels great to me and I'm going to wear it and it brings me joy, right? Coming back to that identity piece
Yeah.
and saying, oh, that's interesting. I had that thought
The sun,
that
the sun would
as
be.
the sun comes in. And then the other thing you said was that I can't because I'm this, right?
Mhm.
And that just totally lit me up because that was one of the talks I did in Santa Fe was the perfection of you. And this is where the freaking spork comes in. You get to be whoever you are, going, oh, I'm a manifester. Oh, I'm a generator. I'm a projector. I'm a reflector, manifester, generator. Like, whatever you are, it's not to say you can't be anything else. It's going, I am this as the start. I am a fork. I've come with the design of a fork. But there's nothing stopping you from becoming a spoon and having spoons. You know what? If we have to get some tin foil to support you and wrap it around your freaking fork so you can scoop it, whatever that thing is, but knowing, going, I am not by myself going to be able to dip into this. I'm here as a fork. I'm a freaking amazing fork. And a fork can be whatever you are, whatever your type is. There's perfection in that tool, whatever your experience is. But that awareness then that, okay, I need support in these ways to accomplish this thing.
Yeah,
Not
and
what
if
you're
people
missing.
are not looking to support you in those ways, instead they're going to consistently give you a bowl of broth with no way to eat it, and then see so that you can see your limitations and then ask them for help or whatever. Those aren't your people, right? And so allowing those people to make you feel inferior as a fork, right, is just ridiculous. And I came home sick from my trip back to Illinois, um, where, I was with a bunch of family and I hadn't really spent as much time with them for it's probably been a year since or more since I spent any time there, but it's been a couple years since I spent the amount of time I spent because I went myself without my husband or my daughter, and I was staying with family. And there is a particular member of my family who started this like public inquisition of what I do and why I do it and how um, it doesn't make sense to him, but it was not done in the spirit of true curiosity. It was done in the spirit of, I'm going to catch you as being wrong. He wanted me, he even said, you need to be able to defend what you believe. And I said, I'm quite capable of doing so, but I don't need to because you have no interest in really understanding what I believe. So why would I put my energy into that? And he was like, no, you need to be. And I was like, and even his wife, my sister, was like, no, I totally understand what she's saying, because you're just waiting to have a gotcha moment to prove that something is invalid in what she said. You don't really care. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, thank you, exactly.
Yeah.
And so knowing that, and as a projector, that I am not recognized in this conversation, even though he loves me, but in that situation, I'm not recognized and really invited, even though he's asking me, right? It was
Mhm.
clear to me that there was no recognition in that conversation. And it was funny because when I did that, all of a sudden, a few family members who had been very, what is this thing you do? Really softened and started to ask me more questions over the course of a few days. And now I'm not saying they were human design converts or anything like that, but
Converts.
there were, right?
We
But
got them.
they had a whole different idea about, and they could see that, oh yeah, she's different. She's not arguing like everybody else is,
Mhm.
right? So
Yes, allowing you to be you and them to be them. Again, coming back to
yeah,
that piece of differentiation that whatever it is for you is perfect. Like
yeah,
celebrating you. You're a fork. I love you as a fork. You're a spoon. You're an amazing spoon. I love you as a spoon. Whatever it is for you, whatever that piece is, and trusting that and loving that. Yeah, so deeply. I would absolutely love some time to just talk about that projector energy and that recognition piece because the more and more I speak to projectors, the more and more I realize how important that piece is, and it's so counterintuitive to me. I can't remember who somebody wrote, I think it was Tallis wrote something about being a projector and that recognition and invitation. And I responded on there and I was like, I had to sit with this for a minute because for me to invite somebody and recognize somebody, there's a piece of me, I have open ego. And I'm like, I have to be able to prove my worth to you. For me, it feels like I have to have something to give you before I invite you to bring your wisdom. And even with our interaction, you had invited me first to be on your podcast, which I was so thrilled for. And then we got talking and it felt amazing. And I was like, hey, do you want to do this with me? Because I think you're amazing, right? But I don't know if I necessarily would have had I'm trying to think of the right word, not inspiration, but the guts to ask you just out of the blue. Because there's also that piece of that fear of rejection, right? Like, who am I to ask you to do something with me, right? So that piece, like, how do we encourage that? So that's something I'd love to jump into with you sometime.
yeah, that
Um,
would be cool.
yeah, that limitation and how that works, right?
Yeah,
Um, because it's a beautiful, beautiful interaction when you find someone that you can be, and the other piece is vulnerability,
yeah,
right? The level of vulnerability to be able to feel safe to share that right now with you. And then what you share as well, that piece of like holding whatever that other person's truth is beautiful. So a big part of this too, in the limitations, looking at, am I in the spaces and with the people that can hold me in my vulnerability?
that's
Yeah.
something Barbara Ditlow talked about too. I thought you were, I'm sorry. She talked about how when she entered into her experiment, when she really started to get deeper into it, it was this idea of accepting invitations radically. And what I took her to mean as she explained that was to really be super discerning about what her authority said was the right invitations for her. And even when her mind was like, what do you mean you're going to say no to that? You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
really like, and I think so many times projectors get caught up on the invitation part when
Mhm.
the recognition part
Mhm.
is, really valid and not, and then they can often, especially if you have an undefined ego, to take that recognition part as some sort of value of, you know, s- you know, I yeah, my words come. Um, some sort of some sort of declaration of your value, and we all are incredibly valuable because we exist, right? Every one of us. And there is no such thing as a chart that is not of a person with value. So that undefined ego is your ability to amplify everyone else's worth through your own knowing of yours, right?
Yes,
So, yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful piece. Definitely something to work through. That
yeah,
just for anybody who isn't familiar, with the ego, when it's open, there's that piece of needing, feeling that need to prove yourself, feeling the need to prove your worth, which is a beautiful part of that experience that you're having, right? That awareness that, oh, I'm feeling this, I'm experiencing this, but never that you're not worthy. Every single one of you, every single one of you is worthy, right? You're
right.
so worthy, just exactly like Kathy said, just by existing.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love how we went to the heart.
right.
Oh, yes. Well, beautiful. So this again wraps up the closing for the new year. We are going to do on the 21st, we're going to go into gate 41 and the starting of the new year. How do we start that? How do we start going into that next piece, that initiating codon for the 41, which is decrease. Why is it decrease? We'll go through all of that. And then also, Kathy, I'd love you to share real quick, if you have a minute, about your shine your light, your wardrobe thing that you're going to be doing.
Yeah, sure. I will put a link, like when you share this in the Facebook group, I'll put a link to the sign up.
Mhm.
We're going to start on the 21st, and once you sign up, then you join the Facebook group, and I'm going to give a prompt every day for 5 days. The fifth day, we're going to have a group call where we're going to talk about some things, and the idea is for you to go inward and really find these limitations that are getting in your way of really showing up as the outer expression of your inner light. So, shine your light is not about me telling you how to dress, it's about you finding out what's maybe defining how you're dressing in a way that's limiting you. So, getting into some of those limiting beliefs, letting go of some of those things,
You have a
and
rainbow on your face. I'm sorry.
uh, I'm gonna have to, like, this time of year, the sun is so much lower that it's coming through my window, and I have these crystals in there. I took them out before I did the podcast, but I didn't think to do it today because it was a little bit earlier. But yeah, they're all over, and there's some crazy light going on. Shine your light. Ah, it's
No,
all in my
you
face. Right?
literally talked shine, and it's about shining your
Right?
inner light out, and it was like
Right?
rainbow.
Yeah. Right?
That was
For
amazing.
anybody who ever watched, there's an old movie called Pollyanna, and she took all the crystals off of the light and hung it in the really, like, the woman who was crabby old woman was bedridden. She hung all the crystals in the woman's window, so it shined all the prisms of light in her window. And I've always loved the visual of that and how it like impacted this woman because, there's something really beautiful about, color and light and sunshine that just really impacts us. So that's why I've really locked in on this metaphor of the here, I got it right here. Look, and right now, oh, it's blocking it too much to do it, but it when I first picked it up, somewhere in here, it was actually shining a ton of light around. Oh,
I
it's all
love
over here. Holy cow, I wish you could see it. The way it's like all these, nope, can't see it. It had tons of light. So I have it here to make my daughter's cat crazy. I pick it up and she tries to chase all the things. Someday I'll hang it. Um, but yeah, so that's something you can sign up to do, and there's a lot to it that I you can read in the thing. But I really believe that it's meant to simplify the idea, so you don't walk into a closet that makes you go, right? You walk into a closet that is you, that is very much in tune with everything that you want to wear. And and it can be casual, like this is like I'm basically wearing like sweats, but instead of wearing it with not with black, I wear it with pink because that's more me. I'm very colorful, so just finding little ways to tweak what you have in ways that make you feel more like you. And letting go of the shoulds is one of the things I say. Anything anybody should told you you should wear. um And so the other thing I wanted to say is if anybody wants to watch the conversation with Barbara, my podcast is called Real Human Design Stories, and it's episode 69 will come out on Monday, the 20th at 5 p.m.
Yeah,
So
amazing. Can you
awesome.
actually post that in the group as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that would be amazing. So everybody can watch that. Yeah. Well,
Okay.
thank you. And yeah, everybody, I mean, feel free to share if you have any questions coming up, especially around like beliefs or any stories that are coming up. A big piece of this is being vulnerable. Thank you. You're welcome. Vulnerable with yourself and vulnerable with others, right? That's how we start to move through this stuff. So love you all. Have an amazing rest of your day, and we'll see you on the 21st.
Bye.